Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and welcome to the Steven Universe Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episodes 1 and 2 of Steven Universe, Gemglow and Laser Light Cannon. Now, you may typically see. Now, for those who are familiar with my vlogs, whenever I tackle an episode or two, you may know that I like to talk about the plots for the episodes and how things generally go in them. And while that is going to typically be the case for these vlogs, for this first episode, I think I'm not going to be doing that as much. I'm going to touch on the plots, obviously, but considering that these are the first episodes and they're just kind of there to help establish the show, I'm going to be focusing more attention on that than the plots. I'm still going to be talking about them, but otherwise, they're not going to be as big of a focus. In this case, so that said, let's talk about Gemglow first. In this case, the premise of that episode is that the main character Steven is forlorn because his favorite ice cream, an ice cream sandwich called Cookie Cat, has been discontinued. However, in his state of depression, he comes home and finds that his guardians, the Crystal Gems, have bought him a crap ton of them because they heard about this and wanted to make him happy. And so Steven happily chows down on it, and upon biting into one, his own innate powers begin activating, and he wants to figure out how to tap into them more. And the episode is mostly just about him talking with each of the gems, trying to figure out what makes him tick and how he can potentially use his own powers to help better them. And so it's just the rest of the whole episode is just kind of that, and just kind of helping, and just kind of Steven interacting with gems and trying to figure out how to use his abilities. Whereas with the second episode, the premise is that a strange object is coming closer and closer to Earth, and more specifically, the city that Steven and the gems call home, called Beach City. And as the gem and while Steven and one of the gems, named Amethyst, is just kind of in the town doing their own thing, they see this thing in the sky, and they realize it's coming closer, and the gems realize that they have to destroy it, but they realize the only thing that's capable of it is a weapon called a laser light cannon. And unfortunately, the only one who had that was Steven's mother, and unfortunately, she's not around anymore, so they have no idea where it is. Steven suggests that maybe his dad knows where it is, and while the gems just kind of brush the suggestion off, Steven goes through with it anyway, while the gems' plan is to just throw Amethyst at the thing several times. As such, we see Steven goes to his dad anyway, and from there, we see Steven the episode's about Steven and his dad trying to find the cannon, figuring out how it goes, and ultimately exchange some small talk and learn a bit more about Steven's lineage. And so, those are the plots of both episodes. So, yeah, like I said, they're not as detailed as I usually am with these things, so I just kind of want to get into the nitty-gritty of each episode and what I think works about each of them, and how they kind of fit as first episodes for the series. And I guess I should probably get straight into the point. As first episodes of the show, they really are just here to lay the groundwork. Like with Danny Phantom and Kodioko, there's no real origin episode for Steven Universe. We don't really know how Steven got his abilities or why he's a member of this group. Actually, we do learn that second question. It's answered in episode 2, but basically, these episodes are just here to help kind of ease us in and lay down the groundwork they build the series up from. In this case, the first episode mainly focuses on establishing the basic setup for the show. Not just, for example, in the first episode, we learn just kind of some basic stuff about Steven himself. How he's not exactly a normal boy. How he looks normal, acts normal, he likes to get snacks, lives in a house, has a family, but the family ain't exactly normal, and Steven himself is not entirely normal himself, as while he may look normal, he has powers. In this case, a pink gemstone located in his belly button, which we learned in the second episode, belonged to his mother. And while the gemstone is supposed to give Steven incredible powers, unfortunately, he has no idea how to use it. And so the first episode kind of helps establish that Steven is trying to figure it out. And we see that mostly because he wants to be an asset to the team. And in the first episode, they do kind of showcase that, and they do showcase that well, as we see Steven getting excited when he comes to the house and sees the gems fighting these monsters that they call centipedals, and talking about how how every time they destroy them, they don't seem to have gemstones, that there may be a mother nearby, which is a good way of establishing the whole thing with the gems, that they're a superpowered fighting force that fights monsters and protects people. And so it's a good way of showcasing that, and while also showcasing Steven's relation to them, that he wants to join them, but because of his lack of control over his powers, at best he'd be a hindrance rather than a boon. Though at the same time, they do want him to reach that point, and they're willing to do whatever they can to support him. Because in the episode, as Steven's gem does light up, he begins asking questions of each member of the group to try and figure out how he can exactly use it. Because one of the powers that comes from wielding the gemstone is, well, wielding a weapon. And each of the gems in this case has their own weapon. And so as Steven begins asking each of the gems how they summon their weapons, we end up getting these like individual one-on-one scenes between Steven and each individual member of the crystal gems. And this not only does well in showcasing Steven's relationship to the team, as well as a member and as a familial member and as a member of the family, but also each individual gem's character. And the first one we meet is Pearl. And through her interaction, we see that Pearl is kind of courteous, calculating, smart, elegant, just kind of generally one of those generally one of those people who likes to keep things organized and in their own place, who calculates all the odds and ends while still trying to be elegant and graceful, and it's showcased perfectly in her scene, as she describes summoning her weapon, in this case a spear, by using control, elegance, calculation, comparing it to a petal falling off a tree. In this case, I think it's a cherry blossom tree. Don't quote me on that. And whenever she summons her spear, she has to focus and use that and calculate just how to effectively use it before she pulls it out and gets it ready. And after she does that, and after Steven talks with her, he ends up going to meet with the next member of the Crystal Gems, the aforementioned Amethyst, and we learn from there, we learn about her personality. How when Steven tries Pearl's method and actively trains it in front of Amethyst just kind of scoffs it off and says, "Oh yeah, did she use the pedal thing? Look, you don't really need all that control. Whenever I want my weapon, I just pull it out." And she pulls it out with almost zero effort. For her, it's just natural. And likewise, when Steven takes in that message, he goes to meet the third gem, their leader, Garnet. Now, I've talked about Garnet when I talked about the crossover Nexus episode, but on the off chance you haven't seen that vlog, essentially it does help us. She is the leader, and this episode does also showcase her stoicness, her toughness, but also kind of the soft interior as well, because she also is soft spoken, speaking low but strong, stern but kind, and the way she talks to Steven, it's clear that every word it's clear that she just speaks her mind. Every word does have meaning to it, but at the same time, it's clear that she doesn't really have a filter. As when Steven asked her, "So I've got to be thinking really hard but put no effort in at all," and she said, "Yep." Or you can channel all the power of the universe into your being and use it to call forth your weapon. Or at least that's how I do it. It's just really not. It's just kind of. It shows just how intense she is, but also how soft she is as well. And we learn that her weapons are 2 gauntlets, which I think are really badass. But again, the episode is just that. But again, the episode does well in showcasing that side, and showcasing it, especially in showcasing their individual personalities, what their deal is as a team, and Steven's individual relationship to them. It's nice little groundwork, and how it ultimately comes to a head is with Steven helping them defeat the big bad. As by the end of the episode, Steven does try and replicate what made his gem glow in the first place, and it does seem to cause him to summon his own weapon, which in this case is a pink shield with a rose symbol on it. But unfortunately, it's a one-time thing, as Steven still doesn't fully understand what happened, as both times he was eating a sandwich, though I think if you're an audience member, you realize it involves his emotional state at the time, since he was all happy and serene when he did it. So, yeah. But in the end, Steven's able to help them defeat the Grand Monster by trying to use the Cookie Cats to summon his shield, failing, and then when the monster attacks him, he ends up throwing a freezer that's still plugged into it. Because since he thought the cookie cats were the source of his power, he brought up the little freezer full of them outside using extension cords to keep it plugged in, and the monster spit acid, and so Steven wound up throwing Steven, in anger, threw it at the giant monster, which was again the centipedal. Before the gems defeated it and took its gemstone. So it's a good way. Like I said, the first episode, it does well in showcasing the basic situation for the show, all the characters, their interactions with each other, etc. While the second episode, in my opinion, I think does a good job at showcasing more, kind of giving us more hints into Steven's situation. Like I said, since the show doesn't really have an origin episode, we're just kind of given like content. We're kind of just given like we're just kind of given little clues here and there. Though in this case, they do just outright say what Steven's deal is. Because, like I said, Steven's gemstone belonged to his mother. And through the dialogue in the second episode, we're able to learn that Steven's mother, well, she was kind of a big deal. Because when the gems see this thing coming to Earth, they call it a red eye, they mentioned how the one thing that could stop it was the laser light cannon, and that it was owned by Rose. However, we don't really fully know. But based on the dialogue, we kind of get the idea that Rose was kind of a big deal to their little group, especially since they just kind of seem forlorn that since she's not around, this is going to be a lot tougher. But at the same time, they do showcase more of that. They also establish, that Rose is Steven's mom because, well, he just outright says it. But at the same time, we also learn when Steven tries to go to his dad to try and find out what the canon is, we then learn his situation and what kind of a person that his dad is. And yeah, he's kind of a loser. I don't want to say he's like a bad person or like a bad character. I mean, like, just in a sense, he's kind of a loser because when Steven goes to meet him, we see that he lives out of a van. He looks like he's got tan lines on him, in the form of what looks like a t-shirt, because you can see it on him that he, with his regular clothes, seems to be an undershirt and sweatpants. And his job is that he operates a car wash. So in comparison to the gems, this guy seems pretty average, especially since he seems to be balding. But at the same time, he does seem to be like a cool customer when it comes to Steven. As when Steven shows up, he seems really nice, chill, laid back, and he's not a jerk at all. If anything, he's actually really supportive of Steven. And when Steven comes to him asking, "Hey, have you seen this cannon?" Greg is just like, I don't think I know where I don't know where it is, but I think I might know where it could be. And so he brings Steven to like a storage shed of his, which is just chock full of junk to the point where you can barely fit inside it. And while Steven is rummaging through there, Greg just kind of talks about we learn about Steven and Greg's we learn through Greg just kind of telling stories about how he met Steven's mom, how he used to be a singer, how he used to travel the country, but when he came to Beach City, apparently nobody showed up for his concert except Steven's mom, Rose. From that day forward, they were together, they had a long-standing relationship, and, well, the reason she's not around anymore is because of Steven, as apparently to have Steven, she had to give up her physical form. That's going to be expanded on later in the series, but it is just kind of like the basic scenario. You don't really get many more details beyond that, just some sort of basic stuff. It showcases that Steven kind of has some big shoes to fill, that his mom was a big deal, and that by just being here and having her gemstone, it's kind of clear that it kind of implies that Steven feels like he has some kind of big destiny to fulfill, especially since his mother was such a big deal and did seem to have all that. It did seem to be this was such a big, like I said, a big deal to the gems, especially considering how they talk about her and reminisce about her. After all, they said that once this thing here, Rose could probably take care of their cannon, and yet it's gone. Steven's trying to find it, and when he does eventually find it, it doesn't work. I'm not kidding. Like, he actually does, like, they managed to get it out of the shed and bring it to the beach where the gems are to try and use it, but for whatever reason, it's not working. And so, as Steven's trying to light it up, he talks about how, yeah, don't be useless, everyone's relying on you, which, when you watch this episode after watching the rest of the series, that line hits a little hard. But what ultimately makes the canon work is a phrase that Greg likes to say, called "If every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs," which is his way of just kind of saying, look, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to mess up every now and then, and we can probably, and if we try to be perfect all the time, then you lose everything that makes you good. And so when he said, and him saying that ultimately is what activates the canon, which is nice too, as when Greg realizes that was the activation phrase, it helps further establish that, yeah, Rose definitely still cared about him a lot if she used that thing he said. But it also does. But again, the rest of the episode does well in not only establishing the whole episode is just a good way of establishing Steven's lineage and just kind of the shoes he has to fill. That his dad is human, and that his dad is just this normal average Joe that Steven can still talk to and be around, but his mother was like this big primo de facto leader of this team, and how by virtue of just being her son, Steven's kind of got big shoes to fill. It's a nice way of showcasing the story and how everything works, while also giving us some entertaining stuff and showcasing and laying the groundwork for future episodes. I like it. They're both really well done in that regard. And so, as a whole, I think these first two episodes are genuinely fine. They're pretty good starters. They're nothing great and fantastic. They're kind of silly in their writing. Steven can be a little annoying at certain points because he kind of embodies that childish mindset. He's a little hyper, is a little hyper, definitely likes to be loud. It's clear that at this point in time, he definitely is the junior member of the Crystal Gems, as he desperately wants to be involved in their missions, wants to help them out, but unfortunately, because he can't control his powers, he's still just kind of on the sidelines, and so he's just kind of an outsider looking in, but at the same time, the Gems still love him and care about him because they do things for him, they hang out with him, they talk with him, they just genuinely see, they do clearly care about his well-being, and they still want him to be involved in what they're doing. It's just that it's going to take a while before he gets to the big stuff, so to speak. And on top of that, and like I said, it helps further establish the Gems and their deal as we see them fighting monsters and seeing them with their weapons and fighting the big the centibeetles along with the big one, as well as just them fighting the Red Eye, as well, and it also and again the first two and the Sorry, getting rambly. They also does well in just establishing their individual personalities, their relations to Steven, and as well as with the second episode establishing more of Steven's lineage and just what kind of situation Steven himself is in by being the son of this big de facto gem that was once part of the team. So I like that. It's good. It's good writing, helps draw you in more, and overall, it's just a good start for the show. It's a bit silly in some regards, definitely kind of fits more into the hyperactive, childish mindset, but you know what? Still fun, does well. The animation's still pretty decent, pretty nice. Good story, good voice acting, some good humor, good action. Overall, solid start to the series. So, yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Samuel Johnson. I thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next week when we look at episodes 3 and 4. So, till then, hope you have a good night, and take care.